Now for something entirely different. Not a governor, politician, churchman. No, this was an explorer, and a very important one. The man was Hamilton Hume. He was born in New South Wales, very comfortable in the Australian bush, including speaking Aboriginal dialects of those tribes surrounding his farm in the Penrith area. His exploration was to have a profound effect on the mapping of New South Wales and its link to its then suburban boundary of Port Melbourne. Hi, I'm Michael Beashall, Australian historical fiction writer, and this to me is a very exciting, adventurous and wonderful man. Yes, he was accompanied by Captain Hovell, but it was Hamilton Hume who had the real experience, the real instinct, especially his vision, his association and relationship with the Indigenous Australians, his resourcefulness, his endurance and his courage, which were a standout between the two explorers. Now, the timing of all this, we're in the term of Governor Brisbane, the first governor who came to the colony after Macquarie. Now, the new governor was inquisitive about what really lay south and southwest of Sydney, say 200 miles from Sydney. What was there? Hamilton Hume was a 27-year-old local from the Parramatta area, and he volunteered to lead the expedition. He was accompanied by Captain Hovell, who was not native born and who had an opposing view on society. He was also more in your face, extroverted and vainglorious compared to the rather humble and probably introverted Hume. This difference between the two explorers would prove fateful during the course of their explorations, and even more damaging in the later years. The two men geared themselves up with a tent, 2 tarpaulins, 3 convicts and 6 pack horses. They reached Lake George on the 13th of October 1824. Near Yass, the differences in personality, temperament and ambition started to come to the fore. Hovell became pessimistic about crossing the Murrumbidgee River. Hume had a go at Hovell and raised the fact about his English birth and wealth, eventually telling him that if he wasn't to go on, he might as well go back to Sydney. They did push on, and on the 29th of October they went over the Tumut River, and Hume wanted to strike southwest towards the rolling plains. When on the 16th of November 1824 they came to a river which Hume named after his father, but this was not to be. 5 years later, Charles Sturt, an explorer we know, reached the same river and called it the Murray, after the Principal Secretary of State in the Colonial Office. So poor old Hamilton Hume missed out on naming the river after him or his family. But after crossing the Murray River, Hume and Hovell headed south, and on December 13th, Hume pushed on, but Hovell wanted him to stop. Within 3 days, they were camping on the shores of Corio Bay. On the 8th of December, they set out on their return. Hovell got up one morning, a bit cheeky, to beat Hume and get to gunning, and wanted to get to Sydney first. He wanted to be the one to tell everyone about how well he did. But Hume caught up with him at Berrima, and they entered Sydney pretty well much on Foundation Day, 26th of January the next year. Even though Hume said that it was really he who had led the expedition, Brisbane didn't take his opinion because he was a currency lad and native born. Again, this discrimination. But they both received grants of land from Brisbane. Wentworth wrote in The Australian that both explorers had found a country a lot better suited to possible cultivation than when explorer Oxley had been down the same area and had branded the inland island as not habitable and useless. So this is a snapshot of explorations to Port Melbourne by those two explorers, Hume and Hovell. The drama, the thirst, the hunger, the fear of that journey cannot be told simply by giving a synopsis. There is a wonderful book that I commend to those interested, written by Robert Macklin, called Hamilton Hume. In it, he really gets to the nitty-gritty of the journey, the relationships between the two men, the advantages that Hamilton Hume brought in terms of his bush knowledge and the sheer exhaustion of having to go where literally no white man had ever been before. Now, it's fair to say that without Hamilton Hume's knowledge of the Aboriginals, the fate of the two men might have been, and their convict helpers, could have been entirely different. And the knowledge of Port Melbourne and Corio Bay not known for many years. So, that's the expedition of Hume and Hovell to Melbourne and back. Now, when one understands the distances between both Melbourne and Sydney now, and the ease of transportation that we have the luxury of having, it really takes time to sit down and ponder the trials and tribulations of these two wonderful men. I'm Michael Beashall, and that's the story of just one of the two explorers. In another article, we'll talk about Sturt and his explorations on the Darling. That's it from me from now. Goodbye.